At 9:41 in the morning, traffic was normal. Cars were moving at highway speed. Trucks were stacked bumper to bumper. Tourists were already late for theme parks. At 9:42, the road was gone. Not cracked, not damaged, gone. No earthquake, no explosion, no warning sirens. Just a hole where a highway used to be. Drivers slammed their brakes. One car stopped inches from empty space. Another wasn't as lucky. And here's the part that makes this story uncomfortable. This collapse did not begin that morning. It began years earlier. In inspection reports most drivers will never read. In maintenance budgets quietly reduced. In geological warnings Florida pretends don't exist. Today, I'll show you how an entire highway corridor was slowly being hollowed out, while millions of vehicles passed over it. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why Florida never publishes a single number about how many roads are still vulnerable. Because once you see how this works, you start noticing the signs everywhere. Florida does not sit on solid ground. It sits on limestone, soft rock, porous rock, rock that dissolves in water. Under most states, the earth behaves like a foundation. Under Florida, it behaves like a ceiling. Rainwater sinks through the soil, becomes slightly acidic, then begins dissolving the limestone below, slowly, silently, for decades, creating empty chambers, underground caves, voids large enough to swallow houses, or highways. This type of landscape is called karst terrain. It exists in parts of China, Eastern Europe, Mexico, and more intensely in Florida than almost anywhere else in North America, which is why Florida records more sinkholes than every other U.S. state combined. Most are small. Some swallow swimming pools. A few swallow buildings. And a rare handful swallow roads that carry entire cities. Look at Central Florida on a map. Orlando, Tampa, Lakeland, tourism arteries, freight routes, logistics corridors, highways like I-4, State Road 417, US 441, State Route 444. These roads move food, fuel, construction materials, tourists, medical supplies. Every day, millions of tons of weight, repeated, hour after hour, year after year, built decades ago, on top of dissolving rock, which raises a question most drivers never think to ask. How do you know the ground is still there? The answer is, you test it, you scan it, you monitor it, and Florida did, which leads to the part of the story nobody puts in headlines. Long before any highway collapsed, engineers were already nervous. Ground-penetrating radar surveys, drainage studies, water table fluctuation reports. They showed voids growing under pavement, subsurface erosion channels, soil losing density. Not dramatic, not urgent, but measurable. Reports use words like progressive subsidence, void migration, long-term instability risk. Translation: the ground is slowly disappearing, and the road is becoming a lid. So why didn't they close the highways? Because collapse is expensive, and prevention isn't visible. Instead, agencies did something safer politically. They patched. They injected grout. They reinforced asphalt. They rerouted water. They delayed. And every delay transferred risk, from budgets to drivers. They weren't ignoring the problem. They were managing it until it managed them. February 2013. State Road 444. Near Orlando. Rush hour. No storm. No construction accident. No impact. Just a vibration. Then separation. Then gravity. A sinkhole over 40 feet wide opened under the highway. One lane collapsed completely. A vehicle plunged into the cavity. Another stopped at the edge. Traffic froze. Helicopters circled. Emergency crews arrived to a road that simply ended. Within hours, geologists confirmed it. A subterranean void had finally grown large enough to break the ceiling being the highway. Within days, more sinkholes appeared nearby, on access roads, on service lanes. on private driveways. The corridor wasn't unlucky. It was exhausted. Here is what most news reports get wrong. The asphalt is not the structure. The soil is. The highway is just a layer on top. Under it, sand, clay, limestone, water flows, stone dissolves, grains move, voids expand. Engineers call it piping erosion, like termites for geology. The road doesn't collapse because it is weak. It collapses because its foundation slowly becomes air. Traffic accelerates it. Stormwater accelerates it. Groundwater pumping accelerates it. And Florida does all three. The failure is not sudden. It is delayed. Years of microscopic movement. Until one day, the math finishes. The hole was filled. The asphalt repaved. The headlines moved on. But the bill didn't. Emergency stabilization. Traffic rerouting. Lost business revenue. Logistics delays. Insurance claims. Property devaluation. Repeated inspections. Permanent monitoring systems. Millions for one hole. Tens of millions for one corridor. And Florida has dozens like it. But here is the uncomfortable part. Every repair advertises safety. Every patch signals stability. Every reopening trains drivers to trust the road again, while the geology continues, silently, unimpressed by concrete, unaware of budgets, unmoved by deadlines. Florida didn't lose a highway because of bad luck. It lost it because invisible problems are easy to postpone until they become visible. Sinkholes don't surprise engineers. They surprise budgets. They surprise commuters. They surprise politicians. But not geology. Geology never panics. It doesn't argue. It doesn't care who approved the design. It just continues doing what it has always done. Slowly, patiently, underneath everything. While people drive to work. While trucks deliver food. While cities grow heavier above ground. The next collapse won't look dramatic at first either. It won't start with sirens, or shaking buildings, or breaking news alerts. It will start quietly, as something ordinary. A thin crack in the asphalt, a pothole that never quite stays fixed, a repair crew working overnight, a line in a maintenance report that says, monitor, then another report that says, non-urgent, then a meeting, then a budget revision, then next year, then traffic returns. And people forget, until one morning, there's a detour sign where a road used to be. That's the part no one likes to talk about. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's boring. And boring failures are the hardest ones to stop. Florida's highways are still moving over limestone, still carrying millions of vehicles, still crossing underground spaces no one can see. And for every sinkhole that opens, there are hundreds that are still growing, quietly, unbothered by fresh asphalt, unimpressed by new paint, unaware of deadlines. When people ask, is this road safe? Engineers don't answer yes or no. They answer with probabilities, with risk curves, with acceptable failure rates, with phrases like statistically unlikely. But geology doesn't operate on statistics. It operates on time, and time always wins. Somewhere in Florida tonight, water is dissolving rock, grain by grain, void by void, creating a space large enough for tomorrow, or next year, or the year after. No announcement, no countdown, just patience. This is how infrastructure actually fails. Not in moments, but in silence. Not through chaos, but through paperwork. Not by surprise, but by delay. If this video made you uncomfortable, good. That means you're paying attention. Not to fear, but to systems, to patterns, to the quiet decisions that shape loud disasters. This channel exists for one reason: to show what's happening before the headlines, before the collapse footage, before the detour signs. Not so you panic, but so you understand, because once you see how these failures form, you can't unsee them. You start noticing the patch cracks, the rush repairs, the temporary solutions that become permanent. You start realizing that most disasters aren't sudden. They're negotiated, postponed, approved, signed, and buried under fresh asphalt. The most dangerous infrastructure problems don't announce themselves. They don't warn you. They don't rush. They don't care who is late for work. They wait